Hello there, I'm Guildmaster Dan, and welcome to the Fourth Wall. It's 2014, and a Happy New Year to you. As you can see, in this new year, I have a new corner. But really, it's just because my wife moved around the house, and this is what I got. But that's okay, because I have Cthulhu Dagon to show you now. Um, Granted, it's from 2012, but having survived 2 whole years under our Dark Lord's reign, and it being as terrifying and apocalyptic outside as it is, well, I think that's a pretty good track record. And in this second apocalyptic year, we're going to go ahead and talk. Well, I guess we're going to the third apocalyptic. This second apocalyptic year, we're going to be talking about tips on running games at cons. Yeah, between that and the other one, then we're. So running games for cons can be pretty different from running your weekly game. I know for some of us, our weekly games we don't do a lot of planning for. In fact, we do a lot of improv. Now, granted, we've talked in the past about GMs who, they do a lot of planning and are not necessarily as good at improv, and then there are GMs that are very good at improv and they more take notes on what happened as opposed to make notes beforehand on what's going to happen in the session. Well, running at a con, even though you can do that, you have to have an idea of what you're doing ahead of time because it's going into a program that has to advertise that to your potential players so that they know whether or not they're going to sign up. Well, uh, so there's more planning involved when running at a con, and I just have some tips to give you if you're either new to the con circuit or maybe you've tried it and didn't have that successful of a time. Well, maybe try these out and see how it works. The very first thing I would recommend is running a system that you know well. Running at a con is a great opportunity to run a different system than you'll run in your weekly game. Maybe a system that you just enjoy playing but don't get to play a lot. Well, it's a good opportunity to crack that out. But you want to know that you want to be able to run a system that you know very well, because at a con, your session, you can probably schedule it as long as you like. But if you're not scheduling like a marathon game, you're looking at a 4 hour game, and you can't be stopping to crack open the book and look up a rule. You just don't have the time for that. You only have 4 hours with these people unless you're running that marathon game. And you want to make the most of your time. So use a system that you know well, that if something odd comes up, that you're comfortable working with, especially if you're not comfortable with making up rules on the fly to just make it work and go. Be sure that you're running a system that you're very comfortable with, that you can handle yourself in those unexpected situations, because they can pop up at cons. You don't know what to expect from the players you're going to be playing with. Um, so you want to be familiar with it. If you're not familiar with it, like maybe you're running a system that you don't get to play a lot, but you really like it, or maybe a game that you've never run before, but you really like playing it, um, take the time beforehand to familiarize yourself with it. Crack the book open beforehand, read it through, and get some local, pardon, at some local gamers, maybe ask your weekly group to, take a pause for a week to run a test session. I highly recommend doing test sessions for con games because it can help you run through your scenario and see any holes in it that you might have, or, it's just a good idea because it gets you prepared to run that for people that you don't know, because you just ran it for people that you do know. Now, in that regard, you want to run something fun. I mean, it's a con, and I know for me, when I go to cons, I look for games that I love playing, my favorite systems, and that I don't maybe get to play actively during the year. Games that I love playing, like Mutants and Masterminds, but I'm not in a weekly game for it. Um, or Paranoia, games that don't run very well for campaigns, though I know of people who run campaigns of that. So, point being, you want to run something fun that maybe you don't always get to play, and because you're busting it out at a con. It could be something old in your library or something new that you've never played before. You use this opportunity to play something fun and special because you're going to a con, and you get to spend a weekend with all these people. You might as well make it memorable. um, I don't worry about if it's obscure or whatever. Just run whatever sounds fun to you and relay that in your description in the program. And like-minded players will find you. You will be, a lot of times you'll be surprised because you'll schedule a game and you'll see that there's no signups, but the day of you'll suddenly get boom, full table of people who signed up that day. Uh, the like-minded players will find you. And if they don't, because that can happen too, that's all right, because you're still at a con, and that just gives you more time to go and play in something else. Um, but speaking of the program, um, what I you want this to be, you want this to be well worded so those like-minded players can find you. A lot of people when they write their program description, they'll just tell the story of the game, or they'll just have the bare basics of the other information that you want to have. But you want to you want to be as clear and precise about what your game is going to be like beyond just the story or the system. You want to give your players an idea of the story, real quick synopsis, enough to get them interested. Then you also want to, talk about themes of the game. Are you running a dark and gritty superheroes game that's going to have death and whatnot in it, or are you running a comedic Dungeons and Dragons game that players should be expecting to do wacky things? Uh, you don't want to word it in a way that players are going to come in expecting one thing and then you run it a different way, because it's really disappointing when you go to a con and you get in a game that you don't have fun in because it's not what you expected. You've wasted your money, and now you're wasting your 4 hours that you could have spent on a game that you could be enjoying. So you want to be clear about what you're doing. Go ahead and have your synopsis to get their attention. Have a I recommend describing the themes that you're using. I don't mean in like the theming your story, but like if you're running a comedic game, or if you're running a dark and gritty game, a horror game, be put that in there. I also recommend, you know, uh, uh, possibly even putting in like some of your game master style choices. If you run a combat heavy game or a role play heavy game, say that. Absolutely, you want them to know that, because if for example you're a GM that is on the more Munchkin side of things, you like the mechanics, you like the combat. Say that, because you'll find the other combat oriented players out there that'll come to your game, and you'll have a richer experience because you were clear about it. Don't just do story, include what type of game it is. And if you have quirks to how you run, um, you know you could always throw those in there, like uh, expect treats, because like for example I like giving out treats for when players do good things, like something that makes me laugh, or something that if I just like how they role played a situation, you know um, that could be something I could put into the program. Expect to get treats, or just any little quirk that you have could go in there too. I also recommend rating your game. This helps out a lot too. A lot of con websites, when you sign up, will give you a means of like giving like an age range for your game. I recommend just going in right in the description, rating your game. I personally like using a movie rating system, because that's a system that everyone's familiar with, at least everyone who's ever seen a Hollywood movie, or seen a preview of one, or seen a movie poster. Pretty much everybody's familiar with that system, and it's pretty clear on what sort of content you're going to see in, whether it's an R movie or a G-rated movie or a PG-13 movie. You already have a general idea of what sort of stuff you can expect to see. Um, if you run a game and you swear and you have sexual themes and stuff, just go ahead and rate it R. There's nothing wrong with that. Plenty of adults going to be there, but there are going to be people there that have their kids. So if you don't rate your game and you're not that descriptive, and you just say that you're going to be running you're just going to be running I don't know, a Call of Cthulhu adventure in a high school, and you were planning on having all sorts of sex and drugs and like lots of adult themes, but then you get a guy who shows up with his kid, and you know, okay. I didn't really describe that. I just said that we were running Cthulhu in high school. Uh, Crap. Um, well, see, that puts you in a spot, and now you have to talk to that guy and see if you let him know, and he might not want to play in the game, and well, now he has to go get a refund, and now you're wasting his time. Be clear in your description for the program. You want to let the players know what type of game you're going to be running. Rate it, themes, um, any quirks you have, and yeah, have your story in there. Give the best idea of what your game's going to be like. Lastly, the best tip that I have for you is always be sure to have spare supplies. You'd be surprised how many gamers that you find at a GamerCon that don't that they don't have the right dice, they don't have pen and papers. Uh, Either they didn't come with it, or they forgot it back in the hotel room and they don't want to run back. It also does a lot. Um, on your part to endear yourself to them when you have those extra supplies to lend them. So whatever system you're running, have a couple of sets of die for that system or appropriate die to that system that you can lend out. Have have paper and pencils because it's inevitable. Somebody's going to forget stuff or somebody's going to have the wrong stuff. So have the extra supplies. It can really help out. Now, granted, there's a lot of things to consider when running a game at a con or going to cons in general, but these are just some basic tips for you on how to run a good game at cons. There might be other suggestions that you might have had. By all means, if you have one or if you disagree with something I had to say, please feel free to leave a comment below. And please like, share, and subscribe so we can keep the conversation going. And as always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. All right. And I lost it.